Hello everyone, my name is Lucian GKaiser and welcome to the GKaiser AGE. Today we are going to be taking our first look at the Bandai HI-MetalR Macross VF-2SS Valkyrie 2. So let's go, GKaiser AGE! Here we have the Bandai Tamashii Nation's HI-MetalR Macross VF-2SS Valkyrie 2, a limited run figure released in November 2017 for 14,000 yen or 130 US dollars, not including shipping or taxes. The box art for this figure is wonderful. Instead of using any images from the figure itself, they went with a full high-resolution anime image. I purchased this one from Hobby Link Japan, a great website for ordering models and figures from Japan. On the back, they have several images of the figure and the special features unique to it. Along with the sides, you can also see that there are pictures of the figure in its Batroid Mode and Fighter Mode with the Super Armed pack equipped on it. You can see the figure in display through a clear panel, which is a nice touch that flows well with the rest of the pictures on the back of the box. Now that we have a good look at the box, let's get this bad boy open and check it out. While I pull out the figure, let's talk a bit about the anime that it comes from, specifically Macross 2 Lovers Again. It was supposed to be a sequel to Macross Do You Remember Love, the movie, but in the end, it has been officially listed as a parallel world sequel to that movie. It is not in the official canon timeline for Macross, which is unfortunate because it's actually a pretty decent show for an OVA series from back in that day. It is a story of Biki, a war news reporter, meeting an alien war songstress named Ishtar, and together with a Valkyrie fighter pilot, finding a way to defeat the massive Marduk fleet that is threatening the destruction of the Earth. This particular VF-2SS is piloted by Lieutenant Sylvie Gina, and the markings and color match that of the previous movie's ace pilot character, Hikaru, who was also in the original Macross series as well. As you can see, this figure comes with a massive amount of accessories and parts, mostly due to the Super Armed pack parts, but there also are several other special parts that are unique to this particular figure. The HI-Metal series of Valkyries come with a very unique set of parts, including one that is what we like to commonly call compound wings, for when it's transformed into Batroid or has the Super Armed parts installed. This makes the wings smaller and more stable since they won't move around like the individual wings, giving the figure a more anime-accurate posability. Now that we have the unboxing done, let's pop this amazing figure out and have a good look at each of its different modes, starting with the Fighter Mode. The Fighter Mode is solid and incredibly well executed on this figure, making it very fun to handle without having to worry about any loose parts. The canopy can open, and inside you see a very well detailed figure of the pilot, Sylvie Gina, which is very cool for a figure of this size, because normally you don't get a pilot that's as detailed as this one that's sitting in the cockpit. There are some very nice panel lines along the fighter with the UN Spacey insignia placed at key points, along with the red stripes, and it has a very nice flat finish along the figure. Even along the underside of the figure, Bandai designers took great care to leave as little transformation parts exposed as needed for the mechanics that are used for the transformation. You tend to get a lot of transforming figures that have these parts exposed, and it tends to make the bottom of the figure or certain parts or angles of the figure look a little rough and not very graceful compared to the actual anime figure. Fortunately enough, they did a great job on the design of this figure. Interesting fact, the original art for the non-armored pack version of the VF-2SS never showed how the gun pod would be mounted on the fighter, so Bandai got creative and made an attachment point on the underside, and it's a great one at that. They even made an adjustment to the gun pod so when you attach it to the underside, it locks in place solidly so it won't pop off or slide around while you're handling the fighter. Even from the rear, the design looks sleek with very little inner workings for the transformation showing. The engine exhausts are also very well designed and can be opened up wider for high thrust poses. The swing wings are very well done with great details on them, and the tail fins are very firm so they don't move out of position when handling the figure unless you press too hard against them directly. As you can see, it is a very detailed fighter. The wings swing back and forward into different positions, so you can set them in pretty much any position that you like, and they stay there pretty well, with the exception of, once you actually touch them and push on them. Now, the tail fins as well are very stiff and firm fitting. I haven't had any issues with them as I've been manipulating the fighter itself around in my hands, with the exception of when I actually touch them or push on them in a firmer way. The landing gear is a very special thing on the fighter as well. The landing gear are not integrated into the figure itself. The landing gear are their own actual separate parts, and those separate parts can, of course, be pulled off and the bay doors were placed on there with special parts that come with the fighter itself. Now, some people may kind of not like this type of parts forming, but I'm okay with it because I've had several figures with landing gear before, and the problem with integrated landing gear is over time they can become loose or they can get damaged easily. With this, you can simply remove the landing gear, put the bay doors down, and put the landing gear back in. They fit in very snugly. The wheels, unfortunately, are not rubberized or not even actual rolling wheels. They're actually just solid wheels on there, which is kind of a disappointment. But once again, it also plays into the fact that you're not really going to be rolling this thing around anywhere. And as you can see, the front part of the bay doors to the rear landing gear are basically integrated into the fighter, but the back part of the bay doors has to be installed directly themselves, which is what I'll be doing next on the figure. So you can see that process as well. It's very nice. The front part of the bay door actually holds in the back part of it. So when you lift up the front part, you don't have to worry about trying to pop out the back part. It comes out on itself quite easily once the front part is lifted up. You can also see that there's some very nice detailed intakes on this figure, and we'll be getting a closer look at those in the Batroid Mode part of the review. So that's going to be coming up right after we get done with the next mode following Fighter Mode. And as you can see, even though I'm handling the fighter, that gun pod is not moving anywhere, it's not flopping around, nothing's happening with it, which I really appreciate on that design. And there we go, we've got the front landing bay door being attached right there on the figure. So that's a great tight fit. They're very nice, they're almost seamless to the figure itself, and it just looks very good. And there you can see I'm popping back up those tail fins. The only reason why they moved out of place was because, of course, I had to handle the figure upside down. It's easier to handle it with those tail fins flat on the figure. But once again, fighter mode is just fantastic on this figure. I can't say anything more better for it than when we get the armor pack on it in our next part of our next review for this figure. Alright, now that we've reviewed the fighter mode, which is amazing, it's time to move on to the next amazing mode, and that's the Gerwalk mode. Macross is very famous for this particular mode, as it's one of the few shows that features a robot transforming into a half fighter, half robot mode like this. So let's go right into it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now we're on to the next mode, the Gerwalk mode. This is the half fighter, half robot mode that is iconic to the Macross series. As you can see, it stands very solid on its feet on this mode. I have had very little trouble posing it and getting into some very nice poses. The leg joints are very solid, the arm joints are extremely solid, almost a little too tight at some points. Now, in regards to the mode, as you can see from the back here, there is some mechanical detail that is exposed, but honestly, unless you get right up close to it, it's not really a big issue. And more than likely, you're going to be mostly photo-opping this bad boy from the front or from the sides here, so you're really not going to see that very often at all. As you can see, it's very steady on its hands, and of course, as always, it does come with optional hands, including one that allows it to hold the gun pod in its hand right there. Speaking of this gun pod, just a little information on that. Unlike the previous gun pods from the other Macross series that were usually Gatling gun styles, this one is actually a high velocity rail gun that fires rapid rounds. It's a kind of improvement that they decided to go on in this particular alternative universe for the Macross series. But as you can see, the figure easily holds the gun pod without any issue. The arm joints are very tight. When I first got the figure and I was manipulating it, I was afraid that there was something wrong with the arm joints because I couldn't really move them. So I took a little time, I loosened them up very slowly, going very carefully with them. As you can see, it comes with these optional hands. You have open hands, you also have fists, you also have, of course, gun pod hands for both hands, mind you, which is very interesting. Not a lot of times do you get a hand for holding a weapon for both hands, so if you get a second one of these, or if they hopefully release another version of it, we'll be able to do twin gun pods, which would be awesome. But you can see this next hand right here, this is the perfect transformation hand. Of course, it's much smaller and less detailed than the other ones, but it's meant to be used when you transform the figure between its fighter mode to the Gerwalk or Batroid mode. But honestly, I like the full-size hands, so I just leave those off in full and just transform it with the other hands attached, and then just attach them when I get to the mode that I'm most wanting to try out. The wings are still sweepable in this mode, and as you can see, the legs are very solid. There's no issue with them whatsoever. Now that we've got that mode out of the way, it is time to move on to the next one, because now we're going to get to the really awesome part, and that is the awesome Batroid mode. Alright, here it is, the Batroid mode, the robotic knight form for the Macross Valkyries. Once again, one of the most iconic silhouettes that you'll see out there in the mecha universe. You point one of these out, and most anime fans that love mecha shows are going to be able to tell you that is the silhouette of a Valkyrie. As you can see, it's a very sturdy figure in its Batroid mode. That has always been one of the things that a lot of Macross Valkyrie figures have tended to miss on, is that connection with the Batroid mode, because a lot of times the upper part and the back part, which basically sandwich together to make the upper body, don't attach well. But on this figure, it's amazingly tight, just no issue whatsoever. And if you put in the option part that allows you to attach it to a figure stand, it makes even tighter connection. It actually improves it even more than it already is, and I find that fantastic. As you can see, the figure's posability is amazing as well. It has a lot of detail on it, and there's very little, if nothing at all, showing for the mechanics that are used to transform it. The head is on a ball joint, of course, and it can bend forward and back, and of course, swivel. And then, of course, you know, you have the same thing with the arms. The arms are very articulate, and I'll show that off to you next. The arms are amazing. They can bend into different directions. You can easily, with the double bend at the elbow, and the arm swivel, and the wrist swivel, and of course, the shoulder joint swivel and bend on it, allow you to take almost any pose that is iconic from Macross, including the unusual pose with holding the gun barrel. Now, looking at the legs, once again, I have to give them props for the intake covers. Usually on Macross, you have to flip out or pull out the intake covers and switch them over to different modes. But with these intake covers, they made it so that they work great in both the Batroid mode and the fighter mode and Gerwalk modes. I love that fact, and it makes it so much easier. The bend at the knee and the bend for the leg is amazing as well. There's a joint that's hidden underneath the upper armor near the thigh that actually allows the leg to swivel. And as you can see, I can even push it forward like it is in the Gerwalk mode. And the armor parts slide nice and easy. There's a great bend, and its posability is just fantastic. You can pose it in so many different ways, and you'll be able to see some extra pictures of that on my actual Twitch and Imager accounts. But let's go ahead and move forward with the rest of the Batroid mode figure information. Now, the feet are amazingly well done. The only problem that I have with the feet is there's not really a bend or anything that allows you to really slant the feet, so you kind of have to position the whole leg to take advantage of getting a good steady foot grip on the ground. But otherwise, it's still a fantastic Batroid mode out of all the Macross figures that I've handled. And there we have it, that classic Macross Gunslinger fighter mode. This is just a fantastic figure. I love the posability on it and just the way it looks and feels in your hands. It's nice and solid, it's fun to play with, fun to pose, and just fun to have on your shelf and look at when you ever feel that nostalgic pull for Macross 2. Now, the one problem that I do have with this figure is there's a lot of nub marks. Now, nub marks are common to when you're making a plastic model kit and you cut the pieces off of the spruce and there's some nubs that are left from you cutting those pieces. I don't normally see this on action figures, especially Bandai ones, but there are a lot on this figure, and I'm thinking about probably sanding them down in the future, but otherwise, everything else on this figure is exquisite for the base mode, and I just can't wait to show you guys how much more awesome it gets once you get the super arm pack on this thing and really get it to that level that you see in the actual show, because this actual form of it is rarely actually even seen or shown in the actual Macross 2 show. So once again, I want to thank you all for joining me here in the GKaiser AGE. For this particular figure, I definitely give it a 9 out of 10. It was worth every penny. Those nub marks are a little bit annoying, but still, it's a fantastic figure. Now, in the next review that I'll be doing soon, and I'll have out very soon, we're going to take a look at this figure again, but this time with those super armor parts that we showed off at the unboxing. So once again, I'm glad you all joined me here. It was fantastic reviewing this figure, and I'm having a blast posing it and just playing with it. But I'll join you again when we go to the next age and we get those super arm parts on here and really show off what this figure looks like. Again, my name is Lucien GKaiser, and I want to thank you again for joining me in the GKaiser AGE. Come back soon for the next review. GKaiser AGE, go!